Adam Winkler is a professor of constitutional law at the UCLA School of Law. He's the author of Gunfight, The Battle Over the Right to Bear Arms in America. Adam, great as always to talk to you. We have now a little bit of controversy involving gun advocates and the NFL, which has decided to reject an advertisement submitted by Daniel Defense, which is a gun manufacturer.
It's been a long road getting here. And a lot has changed since I got back. Now this is the center of my world. And my family's safety is my highest priority. I am responsible for their protection. And no one has the right to tell me how to defend them. So I've chosen the most effective tool for the job.
Daniel Defense, defending your nation, defending your home.
Some gun advocates are going as far as saying that they need to boycott the NFL. I want to kind of split our conversation into two parts. The first is First Amendment. We often hear accusations when there are advertisements rejected or views criticized that somehow someone's First Amendment rights are being violated. So let's get that out of the way first. I have a feeling it's the simplest question. Is anyone violating anyone else's First Amendment rights by the NFL rejecting this ad?
No, absolutely not. The First Amendment to the Constitution restrains the government's ability to censor people. It does not relate at all to private parties and private actions. So the NFL is a private entity. It is not a government or state actor, and thus it is not bound by the First Amendment. If you remember your 7th grade civics class, the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Congress has not made any law here. The NFL just has adopted its own policy for its own broadcast.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. Then the issue becomes, is the NFL making decisions about advertisements consistently based on what their policy is? So what does the NFL and or Fox, which is going to be the broadcaster of the Super Bowl this year, what does the policy say about what type of content will or will not be accepted within advertisements?
Well, the NFL imposes on Fox a very detailed list of prohibited advertising categories, a list of different kinds of things that the NFL does not want advertised on the Super Bowl. And one of those things relevant to this case is a restriction on advertisements for firearms, ammunitions, or other deadly weapons. And Daniel's Defense is a gun manufacturer. Daniel's Defense is arguing that they fit under an exception to this policy, however, because while the rule does restrict any advertisers from advertising firearms or ammunition or other weapons, it does provide that there's an exception if you're a brick and mortar store that sells other items other than firearms. So think of a sporting goods store that happens to sell firearms. They can still advertise on the Super Bowl. And Daniel's Defense claims that they have a brick and mortar store that sells things other than firearms, including branded merchandise like sweatshirts and t-shirts and mugs. And they're arguing that that was what was really being advertised and not the firearms.
Okay, so you could make the argument that if Walmart can advertise on the Super Bowl, which sells a bunch of stuff, including firearms, then Daniel's Defense should be allowed to advertise because they sell firearms among a long list of other things. So looking at that policy, it may not be consistent.
It may not be consistent, but there's another element of the policy that may be at issue here too. So another feature that the NFL has in its prohibited advertising policy is that you cannot advertise for social causes or issue advertising. They basically don't want political ads on the Super Bowl because they don't want to alienate any of their viewers. And it was really interesting, although the ad itself does not appear to be an ad that is one for a social cause. It really features a handsome young husband coming home and seeing his family and saying, I'm going to protect them in any way I can. But the owner of Daniel Defense came out and said that this ad was about exercising their First Amendment rights to support the Second Amendment. Well, then it starts to sound like they're taking sides in a political issue and one that the NFL probably is right to avoid endorsing.
Yeah, so there it becomes very, very clear because they're being completely upfront that this is an ad designed to get people thinking and talking about the Second Amendment, which is a very political issue. The question then becomes, is it still a consistent policy, or let me phrase it a different way? Should you only be looking as the NFL at the content of the ad when making these decisions? Or is it fair to consider what the creator of the ad has said about their intention?
Well, I think it's probably fair for the NFL to consider all information with regards to its policy and its proposed ads. Now, granted, if you see this ad, David, you'll see it's a very tame ad. It's really kind of boring for a Super Bowl ad, actually, just this guy coming home and seeing his family and hugging his child while the voiceover talks about importance of family and defending your family.
Yeah.
But it's pretty tame comparison to so many advertisements we see on the Super Bowl that are extremely violent, that have a lot of overtly sexual material, even though the NFL policy warns against overtly sexual material. So I can't blame those in the firearms industry for saying there's at least a hint of hypocrisy here to say, well, you can't talk about defending your home, but if you have a crotch-biting dog, you can put it in your beer ad, and it can do whatever kind of violence it wants.
Yeah, and then this really kind of gets us to the broader societal question, which we've been talking about since Janet Jackson's nipple popped out on the Super Bowl, which is what really is good or bad for, usually it's children, right, that are discussed. What's good or bad for the children to see? Are kids' lives ruined if they see a breast or a crotch bitten or someone being shot in either a cartoonish or non-cartoonish way? And when we look at it from that point of view, it seems like there are these kind of nebulous or gray areas within society for what is acceptable and what isn't during primetime TV.
Well, that's absolutely right. And although I'm a fan of NFL football, I have to say that probably the most hazardous things for kids to watch during a football game is the game itself,
right?
Which is an incredibly violent game, and we're finding out causes so many more devastating injuries. And indeed, the NFL has good cause to be concerned, even though it's the most profitable sports league in the country by far. The number of people who are signing up for Pop Warner, which is like Little League football, has declined about 10% over the last 2 years, and parents are increasingly worried about the violence that comes with the NFL. But for the gun rights people, their issue is really they see the NFL as being consistent in one sense, consistently anti-gun, and
right.
that they see this ad as part of a larger pattern of hostility by the NFL to gun owners.
Well, it seems to me, and you tell me if you agree, that this one is not going to go back in favor of those who are pushing for the Daniel Defense ad to run. It seems like it's just not going to happen.
It's not clear to me even that Daniel Defense really wants to run this ad. It's extremely expensive to run a Super Bowl ad, and they wouldn't be the first ones to submit an ad rather cheaply to the NFL and try to make a little free publicity on the rejection of the ad by the NFL. Alex Jones, who's a big gun rights advocate who went on a notorious anti-gun rant during the Piers Morgan show after Newtown, has really called for this boycott of the anti-liberty NFL. But, the NFL may have been good at taking down Barack Obama's proposal and defeating candidates in Colorado and elsewhere, but I think they've really finally met their match with the NFL. Americans love their football even more than they love their guns.
All right, Adam Winkler, professor of constitutional law at the UCLA School of Law. Check out his book, Gunfight, The Battle Over the Right to Bear Arms in America. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for having me.